I don't like this story. A couple weeks ago, our leader just kind of admitted before she read scripture that she didn't like the story that she was about to read. Well, I don't like this story. It's violent and mean-spirited, a story of greed, of betrayal, of bullying and murder. I don't know about you, but I get enough of that on the news every day. I don't need it in my Bible here. And what gets into people? Shooting U.S. representatives at a baseball game? Shooting children in a school? Or concert goers from a 32nd floor hotel window? What got into those people beating up the owner's messengers, killing them, and then killing the owner's son when he sends him? I mean, could these folks working the land not have imagined that something bad would happen because of their selfishness and greed? Matthew tells us that the Pharisees heard this parable and they realized that Jesus was speaking about them. So at one level, it's a story about the Pharisees, the leaders of Jesus' own people, but parables have a way of acting as a mirror, forcing us to see ourselves in them. We've studied many of these parables in the last few weeks, and we've had to ask ourselves, have we really received the gift the King has given to us? Or think about, where do we really stand in line? This parable is no different. Jesus asks us to make some judgments, not about others' tenancy of the vineyard, but our own. And that makes me a little uncomfortable because this isn't a story I want to be in. It's a violent story, but I'm in it. So are you. The story is one with a latent anger and hostility in it, a violent streak that's almost inexplicable. I mean, what is wrong with these tenants that they're so given to violence that their first reaction is, let's murder someone? You don't just get to kill people whose messages you don't like, or whose lifestyle you don't like, whose race you don't like, whose politics you don't like. What is wrong with people? And what's wrong with us for thinking all this will just stop one day on its own? We send thoughts and prayers and ready ourselves for the next act of violence, candles barely put away from the last vigil. I think people are angry for a lot of reasons, I guess. Often they're angry because they don't feel in control. They may feel powerless, rightly or wrongly. They may feel afraid of losing control. That's what I think is at the root of a lot of this. Fear. Fear of losing control of a vineyard that's not even there. Fear can do so much. It's why the most frequent command in Scripture over and over again is do not fear. And yet we do it. And it causes us to do some horrible things. Fear of losing privilege or power in the world. Fear that we won't have enough. Fear that we'll have our rights taken away. We talked about it a month ago. Yoda told a young Anakin Skywalker, fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hatred. And hatred leads to the dark side. What the tenants in this parable do is violent beyond reason. It's almost as if they're filled with hatred at the owner. But why? What happened to these people, these tenants in the vineyard? I mean, it started out so well. They had so much to be grateful for. There was, according to the parable, a fence and a wine press and a watchtower. That means there was security, peace, and abundance. Think about those three things: security, peace, and abundance. I'd love to have those. Can you imagine a world of security, peace, and abundance? They had everything they could want or need, but the tenants in the parable are so out of character when compared to the blessings that surround them. They treat everyone who comes in the name of the owner as an enemy. The owner sends messengers twice, and they rough them up, they kill them. And then the owner sends his son. It's at that point of the story we want to shout out, don't send the son, they're going to kill him. It's like the movie we're watching where the young woman goes into the bathroom. Like, don't go in the bathroom, don't pull back that shower curtain. Nothing good hides behind the shower curtain. They never listen, by the way. We want to shout at the Bible, don't send your son. But he does. And sure enough, they kill him. In the convoluted expectation that having done him in, somehow the owner will give up all his claim and say, well, my son's gone, you killed him. I guess everything I have is yours. Because that makes sense, right? What's wrong with these people? Well, the answer, I think, is that at some point, the tenants get so used to their privilege and lack of accountability and running things their own way that they become confused about who the owner of the vineyard actually is and who the tenants are. Barbara Lundblad of Union Seminary elaborates this point in a profound way. She says, compassion becomes a casualty when ownership of the vineyard is at stake. The rise of hate crimes in America shows that we seem to be more afraid of each other with each passing day. And the vineyard that once seemed endless as a source of jobs and security has grown smaller. The boundaries are closing in. Who is to blame, she asks? The government? The corporations that move factories to Central America and Mexico and India to find cheaper labor? She says, I'm not suggesting that Jesus' parable is a treatise on economic recovery. It is not. But it is about a vineyard, the commonwealth of God. It is a story of hatred that consumes people intent upon keeping the vineyard for themselves. Hatred that moves all too quickly toward violence. I think she's right. We're living in a society, in a time where hatred and violence is commonplace. It's almost as if it's expected if you don't like the outcome, you get to hurt someone. And we wait for the next horrific act. What is happening in the vineyard that such violence and hatred is commonplace, that we have become so inured to our own barbarity? I see physical and verbal acts of violence actually cheered and lauded. People post edited images of themselves hurting rivals, and it's cheered. As if beating up the vineyard owner's servants and killing his son is what we should have been doing all along to protect what is ours. And there it is. The parable exposes a dirty little secret about us. We think that the vineyard is ours, and we can do what we want with it, and we can treat each other in any way we want, and there is no holding us to account. We have convinced ourselves of a dangerous lie that the vineyard is ours. We are in charge. We deserve more than others, that things and opportunities and privilege belong to us by right. And we're living the lie as the truth. Let me confess something to you. In college, I used to lie about what I really made on my SATs. It was a number people used to kind of pluff themselves up and say, oh, I'm smarter than everyone else. So I just made up a number that sounded good. It got to the point, I don't even know what I really got on my SATs. I have no ideas. I began to actually think the number I made up is what I actually made. I had to stop and think for a second, wait a minute, that's not actually true. You tell the lie enough, you can convince yourself of its truth. We've told the lie too often. This land is our land. These opportunities are for us first. That these privileges and this abundance is rightfully ours. That the vineyards is ours because we've been here for so long. We begin to really believe it. I was listening to one of those radio morning shows recently, driving into work, and they had one of those funny criminal news segments that come on. Anyone ever heard? Those kind of dumb crook news? Well, this was a story about an older woman who had finished her shopping, returned to her car to find 4 men inside it. She dropped her shopping bags, drew a handgun from her purse, and with a forceful voice said, I have a gun and I know how to use it. Get out of my car. These men did not want to wait for a second invitation. They got out and ran like crazy. The woman, understandably shaken, quickly loading her shopping bags into the car. She just wanted to get out of there as quickly as possible, but no matter how she tried, she could not get her key into the ignition. Then it hit her. This isn't my car. And we laugh. But think about it for a second. She had a gun, and she was willing to shoot someone to defend what was hers. But it wasn't hers. We are not owners in this vineyard. We are sharecroppers. And we have a stewardship of accountability that puts us on warning. It is not ours, it is God's. As Amelia read from Psalm 24 in the call to worship, the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. But we believe the lie, and then we live the lie. And we take the vineyard for ourselves, leaving others without the peace, the safety, and abundance. And when they come knocking on the door, we say, "Be gone, get your own vineyard, work for it, this is mine." But it's not our vineyard. Sure, we believe it is. We act like it is. We pursue it like it is. We protect it like it is. Our land, our wealth, our stuff, our time, our opportunity, our good fortune, our vineyard. We deceive ourselves and we live the lie. Nothing eats away at your soul like living a lie. You can't keep it up forever. The late Fred Craddock tells the story of a conversation he had with an adopted ex-greyhound race dog. He says, "I was in a home not long ago where they'd adopted a dog that had been a racer. One of the kids in the family, just a toddler, was pulling on its tail. A little older kid had his head on that old dog's stomach, used it for a pillow. That dog seemed so happy. So Craddock says, I said to the dog, are you racing anymore? The dog replied, no, I don't race anymore. Well, do you miss it, the glitter, the excitement of the track? Nope, not really. Well, what's the matter? Did you get too old? No, I still had some race in me. Well, were you just not very good at it? Did you not win? The dog said, well, I won over $1 million for my owner. Then what was it, bad treatment? Oh no, they treated us like royalty when we were racing. Then what was it? Did you get hurt? Did you get crippled? No, wasn't that. Then what was it? The dog replied, I quit. You quit? That's what I said, I quit. Why'd you quit? And the dog looked at Fred and said, I discovered that what I was chasing was not really a rabbit. And I quit. That dog looked at Fred. All that running. And what I was chasing was not even real. The workers beat the messengers, killed the messengers. They killed the son, all for a vineyard that wasn't even theirs. Wasn't real. All this politicking, all this vitriolic speech from politicians and voters alike, this anger, this running, this fighting for our country, our jobs, our borders, our taxes, our social services, our opportunities, my money, my time, my privilege, my tradition, my turn. All this fighting, grasping, running, and the rabbit's not even real. It's not our vineyard. What we're chasing after. We're just running around in circles, running after a lie. It's not our vineyard. Not our vineyard. Let us pray together. Almighty God, we thank you that you provide so much. Like the psalmist says, green pastures and still waters, your rod and their staff, they comfort us, Lord. Forgive us when we think it's all about us, that it's our world, our stuff, our opportunity. Help us to be stewards of what you have given and share it with the world. Amen.